Vice Chief of Army Staff, General Raja Subramani, Director General of FICCI, Mr. Jyoti Vij, CMD of Munitions India Limited, Debashish Banerjee, Mr. Ashish Kansal, a co-chair on the panel with me, other dignitaries of FICCI, our defense attaches from friendly foreign countries, friends from the media, delegates from the industry. Thank you for all being here, and a very good morning to all of you. At the very outset, let me thank FICCI for organizing this particular event and giving me this opportunity to speak to you all and share my views on this particular occasion of Ammunition India 2024. Allow me to begin by contextualizing the importance of this particular conference. If we just look around us, we find that the world is in actual tumult. The global geopolitical environment, it's in a state of flux, and I believe that we are passing through an era of great global disruption. And I talk about global disruption. It encompasses technological disruption, economic, environmental, whether it is climate change, demographic, migration of people, or whether it's peace and security. The global security environment has been altered actually by two major wars that are not only intense, but has also been protracted for a very, very long time. However, there are a number of other conflicts also ranging in the other parts of the world, be it Myanmar, be it Sudan, the Sahel region, or Congo. The war in Libya, Syria, Yemen, and Armenia may have settled down for the time being, but peace or lasting peace is yet elusive. In my view, I think the world is actually in the most violent phase of its existence ever since World War II. The vagaries of this VUCA world are seriously impacting the global defense supply chains, especially ammunition. The global arms industry presently is grappling with a kind of a gap between this widening gap between demand and supply. The reliance on imports to bridge this gap is becoming a necessity for most nations, highlighting global interdependence in defense supplies. But yet, there is a saying that in every challenge there lies an opportunity, in every cloud there is a kind of a silver lining. These disruptions have presented an opportunity for the global defense arms manufacturers, including the ammunition industry, including Indian one. And you just heard actually the CMD of MIL saying that his exports, etc., and demands have increased multifold. So most of these people in India also are becoming from importers of ammunition to exporters of ammunition as well. I'm happy to note that FICCI has been focusing on these issues for quite some time. And in fact, they started this particular Ammo India conference in 2008. So in some manner, they were quite visionary to have thought about this in 2018. And that I think is very, very remarkable. FICCI over the years has been an important bridge that has contributed towards synergizing the efforts of various stakeholders in defense manufacturing. I'm also particularly happy about the way FICCI has supported the concept of joint ventures with foreign OEMs and transfer of technology to boost India's Atmanirbharta drive. This is a very important concept and must be hosted at all levels. The Make in India and Make for the World, actually, this was alluded to by Mr. Banerjee also, is kind of inclusive in nature and calls for global growth through shared goals and cooperation. It is what sometimes we've been calling as, our Prime Minister has been calling as Sabka Saath and Sabka Vikas. I will now talk about the concept of Atmanirbharta in the context of challenges that India faces and the concept of strategic autonomy in slightly more details. India has its own share of challenges, security challenges. We have proxy war raised by Pakistan and Jammu and Kashmir, whose sudden escalation we are now seeing in south of Pir Panjal, and the prolonged border dispute with China is yet to abate. These are two major security challenges that we face. The instability in a neighborhood is another cause of concern for us. A strong armed force backed by a strong defense industrial sector is hence a sine qua non for the nation state. For a large nation like India, with plenitude of security problems, it cannot remain dependent on foreign imports for war fighting and sustenance, especially in an environment where the global security environment is in a state of flux and we have live borders at hand. India's quest for Indianization and Atmanirbharta is central to maintaining this strategic autonomy. In fact, the word Atmanirbharta actually starts with the word Atman, which is talking about self or say self-reliance. The word self-reliance also starts with self actually. So what we are talking about is actually self-realization and self-actualization. And that will bring about the self-confidence in our defense industry. So that I think is important. And this whole concept of Atmanirbharta, you can say, is slightly more than just about defense manufacturing. If we have to translate this concept of Atmanirbharta only in defense manufacturing or ammunition manufacturing, it means complete sovereignty over the product cycle, right from its design and its development to manufacturing, from induction to sustenance, and even to its end of life. That means a complete worm to a tomb kind of an approach. Coming to the theme of today's conference, military ammunition, make in India and make for the world. Let me say that munitions and ammunition are a feed for the military. It helps the military to fight, survive, and win. Like food, it satisfies us not only the physiological needs, but also the higher order psychological needs of safety, security, as well as self-esteem. I firmly believe that Atmanirbharta is a major resource for which dependence on other nations will not only be fatal, but would also compromise our national security. We have often heard terms like food security, energy security and all, and the nations actually try and cater for such kind of eventualities when these are not available. Say carry out stocking, or they look at alternate sources actually for getting this. To be self-reliant in ammunition, it will require a multidisciplinary and a multidimensional kind of an approach. Some kind of a policy changes that will be required within us. I'd like to dwell upon that. In India, we've been dependent on foreign sources for majority of our ammunition needs, and that's why we in the Army actually developed this policy of war wastage reserves. Now, if and we used to have it for intense as well as normal rates of war fighting. If you're looking at self-reliance in ammunition manufacturing, that means we'll have to review this particular policy. We'll have to look at creating surge capacities rather than stocking ammunition over here, and intelligent inventory management rather than stockpiling of this ammunition. It would also mean diversification of our vendor base amongst defense PSUs and the private sector for manufacturing even the same kind of ammunition. It would mean a policy that encourages competition as well as collaboration at the same time. A different kind of a civil-military fusion would have to be brought about in defense manufacturing, including ammunition. I believe that given the numbers which India requires, actually, we are a huge standing army, and the demand for exports which is coming up, I think there is enough room not only for the defense PSUs but also for the private industry in the field of ammunition. There are also a large number of defense officers which are part of the audience, and I feel there is a need to study, I think, how ammunition expenditure is taking place in these major conflicts in the world. Then we got to realize that what kind of a conflict we will be faced with, and then we will be able to estimate our own requirements of ammunition. We'll have to be flexible and variable in our WWR rates for the types of ammunition. So this is another kind of a reform which we need to look at. You can't have one rate of WWR for all types of ammunition. And as said earlier, in addition, optimal resource utilization, adequacy and proximity of storage spaces to rapidly sustain the operational mission, and effective operational logistics, whether it is transportation, inventory management, life cycle management, all this become very, very important and very, very relevant actually planning considerations. Another area where we need to focus is on the latest development and design of ammunitions. The family of ammunition has evolved over a period of times from the era of dumb bombs and ammunition to precision guided, smart ammunition, loiter ammunition. Mr. Ashok Kansal mentioned about it, the Vice Chief also mentioned about it, that we need to diversify, we need to look at better ammunition, we need to frame GSQRs very intelligently, so we don't have frame GSQRs for older variety of ammunitions. So this is important because, I believe that military objectives can be achieved through intelligent application of force and not just brute force of ammunition. There is a need, therefore, to judiciously balance our inventory of ammunition to meet the operational requirements of precision-based ammunitions, loiter ammunition, as also traditional medium and heavy caliber ammunition. Towards this end, investments in emerging technologies, innovation, and to build specific ammunitions must be encouraged. Another thing which we need to look at is, innovations during war, and that's not applicable only for technology or tactics, but also for ammunition. People start the war with, a set of given fixed parameters, fixed type of ammunition, and then you say, in the context of war, then there is a certain amount of innovation. You've seen it happening in Ukraine. And you've seen it even during the Kargil war. I remember that, we had to modify our MiG-2000, including the laser-guided bombs which used to fire. And then we will be able to hit more accurately. And similar kind of things are happening. So even during war, I think there is a need to innovate as to how things are changing. I think that is very, very important, so that we provide a better solution. India's capability can open up also new vistas, not only for defense industry, but also defense diplomacy. India will be able to exercise an effective strategic autonomy if it creates cross dependencies with major ammunition and weapon supplying nations. This, in short, you can call it even about ammunition diplomacy if you so like. For all these dreams to come true, I think there is a need for this troika of three major players to come together. On the first leg is defense PSUs, the old and the new ones, the private industry as one vertex, the academia, DRDO, and other research and development organizations in the second vertex, and the services themselves being the third vertex. Each of them has a set of responsibilities and duties, and to my mind, there are four mantras when, if pursued, the troika can lead to success as far as India is concerned. First is taking ownership. Second is being innovative, imaginative, inventive, and creative. Third is being collaborative. And fourth is being competitive. Let me elaborate now on all the three concepts. First, I said, services have to take ownership of the projects and also handhold the industry when it comes to development, acceptance, purchase, and promotion of products. Partly this was mentioned by most of the officers who preceded my address over here. The second is about the DRDO and the academia. They'll have to be, what I said is imaginative, innovative, and creative in identifying enabling kind of technologies, whether it is sensors, materials, communication, whether artificial intelligence, machine learning. And partly this was also addressed by saying that, that we have to invest more into R&D. The KMPP report said that we're spending much less on R&D, which needs to be expanded. The third aspect is the defense industry, including MSMEs, private industry, startups, and young entrepreneurs, have to focus on improving the productivity by being collaborative. Strategic partnerships and joint ventures, the core themes promoted also by FICCI, are then actually the need of the hour. Last but not the least is creating a spirit of being competitive. This has to be encouraged throughout our defense products and industry to meet gold standards. The competitiveness has to be visible in pricing as apart from the quality of products, and it has to be made very, very lucrative for exports. There is actually a crying need to make global brands as far as ammunition manufacturing is concerned in India, and self-reliance and Atmanirbharta is only a stepping stone for this future kind of reforms for making these global brands. Our armed forces, the Vice Chief has alluded to it. We are on the cusp of a kind of a major reform. Multiple initiatives have been taken by the Ministry of Defense and the armed forces to maintain an edge over our adversaries. With impetus on Make in India and Atmanirbhar Bharat drive, service headquarters have taken a lead to reach out to the defense industry for indigenization of ammunition. The three services, especially the Army, has taken up that all future ammunition procurements will be from indigenous sources, and any new platforms introduced in service henceforth will also have indigenous ammunition. Impetus is also being paid to gradually reduce number and types of ammunitions by promoting commonality to the extent feasible, and that's lead to reduced inventory and associated costs. All this is done in a kind of a phased manner. The Army has a plan, and probably in the course of the seminar people will discuss it. It's a three-stage kind of a plan. The Vice Chief also mentioned that the Indian Army now sources almost about 88% of its ammunition through domestic sources, and they have a plan in place to Indianize the balance of this 12% in a time frame of 25-26, and we are well on that path on this. So these initiatives are aimed at reducing the import dependency of ammunition. Cost savings and optimization must also be attempted through an overall reduction in inventory stemming from commonality and interoperability, consolidation of warehouse requirements, and through diversification of production agencies and indigenous vendor base. So logistic planning, etc., has to go side by side to reduce costs. India is at a decisive turning point in history. We are well on a path to become a third largest economy of the world. Services, actually, the armed forces will have to seek a commensurate growth in their capabilities if we are to become a third largest economic power. With an ever-evolving global security environment, the demand for munitions will only grow in future. With the proven expertise and competitive manufacturing cost, India stands to enjoy a huge advantage in this particular field. At the end, I'd like to congratulate or compliment FICCI for organizing this conference on military ammunitions. I am sanguine that the initiative will provide an invaluable platform for fostering relationship between all stakeholders, that the services, the industry, the MOD, and of course the academia and the scientific institutions. With these thoughts, I wish this particular conference great success, and I look forward to hearing about the outcome of this particular conference from the officers who are part of this. Thank you so much. Thanks, and Jai Hind.